Downing Street allies have launched an extraordinary defence of the Prime Minister as Wes Streeting's team deny a leadership challenge plot. I'm LBC's political editor, Natasha Clark, with all the latest.
Plus, in praise of our great music industry,
It's me.
as it helps boost the UK economy for some £8 billion. I'll give you details at our regular for the World of Finance. We've got a 7:16 LBC News headlines. Lottie Morley.
The Prime Minister's allies say he'll fight to retain his position amid fears his job could be under threat. The Health Secretary says he's approved changes at the NHS, which could raise £1 billion to improve patient care. And LBC understands the Chancellor is considering another 3.6% hike in alcohol duties. LBC weather, raining in the south this morning, but staying dry and bright for most elsewhere. Highs of 16 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne, where Gatwick Express services remain suspended south of the airport, so no trains running between Gatwick Airport and Brighton. It's because the overnight works are still taking place, and as a result, Southern and Thameslink services are suspended between Brighton and Three Bridges. Great Western Railway and Heathrow Express trains are delayed to and from Paddington because of the ongoing track problem. On the Underground, the Piccadilly line is suspended between Rayners Lane and Uxbridge. There are severe delays on the rest of the line. Also severe delays on the District line and also minor delays on the Central. On the roads, it's very busy on the North Circular Road southbound to the Beckton roundabout. A van's broken down and delays of about half an hour on the A12 southbound to the M25.
This is LBC.
Save the Children is inviting you to the UK's most spectacular Christmas party. That's right, Christmas Jumper Day is back on Thursday the 11th of December, and Save the Children want every school and workplace in the country to get silly and donate for a seriously good cause. It couldn't be easier. Sign up, take your jumpers out, and this December join the millions of people creating lasting change with Save the Children. Sign up now at christmasjumperday.org.
LBC. Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. Download it now from your app store.
Buying a home at a holiday park was the retreat you always wanted. But then came unexpected site fee increases. And that was before the dramatic loss in value. If you want a home at a holiday park in the UK, you may have been misled. holidayparkadvicecentre.co.uk could help you receive thousands in compensation. Text ASSIST to 78900. That's ASSIST to 78900.
At TfL, we're making tube journeys faster in the future, with signalling improvements underway in the Circle, District, Thameslink City and Metropolitan areas. And there's also the Elizabeth line, already giving you fast journeys across central London. That is how we're making a greener way to travel brighter for everyone. Search TfL Improvement Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Elizabeth line is fast compared to other TfL modes. Greener than total estimated petrol and diesel car emissions.
You plan a holiday, you plan a commute. Meal plans, career plans, even workouts need a plan. So doesn't it stand to reason that your money has one too? Because the sad truth is, if it doesn't, it's just sitting there, barely growing, if at all. That's where you need a money plan. And Quilter can help. It's a lot easier to stick to than a workout plan. Money needs a plan. Quilter. Pensions, investments, advice. Find out more at quilter.com.
Nick for Warrior Breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
19 minutes after 7 now. We'll take your reaction at the start of the conversation and do the headlines, but we're going to change. We are at our best when we're at our boldest. We once famously said that. That'll be Tony Blair, a very successful Labour leader and Prime Minister. And talking of successful Labour politicians, let's welcome to the conversation Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, who's going to be telling us about exciting changes, saving hundreds of millions of pounds to make sure that it goes into patient care. Mr. Streeting, we will, of course, be talking about that, I assure you, but I have to put to you first the headlines in some of the papers. There's a sense that the Prime Minister is defending leadership from feral Labour MPs. The Times, relative an alert amid fears of challenge, says The Guardian, and all the other papers too. Mr. Streeting, would you ever want to be Prime Minister?
This is how people behave in your own house. I'm not sure, Nick. I mean, here I am coming to you from the LBC safe house in the basement of Millbank, which is just across the road from the park.
We're calling it the witness protection programme. Don't worry, the money clears, but no one knows you're there, Mr. Streeting.
I mean, I'm laughing because I just think this is ridiculous. No, the Prime Minister is was not fighting for his job this morning. In fact, the last time I saw the Prime Minister on Monday evening with a small group of cabinet colleagues was to talk about how we're going to fight the scourge of violence against women and girls. So I think this is daft, to be honest. In fact, I think someone in Downing Street has been watching too much Celebrity Traitors, and this is just about the most appalling attack on a faithful I've seen since Joe Martin was banished in the final, to be honest.
Can you assure me, read my lips, you need to say, I am not Alan Carr.
I nearly dropped the F-bomb right there first thing in the morning.
Just read my lips, I am not Alan Carr.
Yeah, this is why I don't wear rectangular glasses. And if you think I'm giving you that clip for social media, you've got another thing coming for
Let's move to other matters. You're determined to deliver on patient care, and you found a bit of extra cash. Tell the listeners about that, Mr. Streeting.
So you may remember, Nick, the Prime Minister and I set out plans to abolish NHS England, which is the biggest quango in the world. It's sort of the national head office for the NHS. Merge it with my Department for Health and Social Care, because we think that the system only needs one head office, and also reduce by 50% the size of those combined organisations, to reduce by 50% the size of these integrated care boards we've got around the country. And that's for a few reasons. Firstly, the size of those organisations have doubled since Labour was last in office, when we were delivering the shortest waiting times and the highest patient satisfaction in history. And no one's telling me that all of that extra bureaucracy and all of those extra layers of management will deliver better results, because objectively they haven't. And secondly, because even as we're investing more into the NHS, 26 billion this year, going up to 21 over the next few years, I've got the responsibility to make sure that every penny is well spent, and whether it's patients using the NHS or whether it's staff on the front line, everyone's saying the same thing. Too much management, too many layers of bureaucracy. Let's invest it into the front line. So seeing is believing. We said we'd do it. Today I'm setting out to NHS leaders the timetable that will enable us to invest at least £1 billion extra a year into the NHS front line.
What is that timetable, and ultimately how many jobs might have to go, Secretary of State?
So we're looking at about 18,000 in total over the next few years. We're doing it over a 3-year period to do it in a phased and managed way, both in terms of making sure this goes smoothly, also, and very importantly from my perspective, to treat people fairly. These processes are not easy. We are at the easier end of it at the moment because there are lots of expressions of interest for voluntary redundancy. In fact, the frustration I felt from staff that I've met in recent months has been, look, I've said I want to take voluntary redundancy. Can you get on with it, please? And so today I'm at least able to give them that certainty that that process will be underway. It sets people free to go and do what they want to do, and it means that we can start making savings sooner rather than later.
But that's 18,000 without jobs. Noting what you say about voluntary redundancy, this comes the day after the jobless figure hit a 4-year high of 5%. You're adding to that joblessness, aren't you, Secretary of State?
I'd say two things in response to that, Nick. It's a fair challenge. Firstly, we are reinvesting the money saved into the front line. There will be more jobs on the front line in the NHS, and there are many people who work in these organisations who have either valuable skills that could be used in the NHS or elsewhere, or indeed are qualified clinicians who I'd rather see closer to the front line or at the front line. The second thing is, and I say this with care and sensitivity for people who come to work in these jobs, work hard and are dedicated to the NHS, it's my responsibility to make sure that we're spending every penny wisely. And if we're spending it on jobs or functions which are not essential and could be done better elsewhere in the system, it's my responsibility to do that. I'm not running a job creation scheme, I'm running a national health service, and I've got to make sure that every penny that's going in is going to the front line. I think I also, especially ahead of this budget, which everyone's saying is going to be a difficult budget and potentially with some unpopular measures in, I owe it to every taxpayer in the land to make sure that I'm spending their money as carefully as they are spending their money.
No one will feel, I imagine, more keenly than you the fact that we're looking at these strikes, the resident doctor strikes later this week. You'll be aware the head of the NHS suggested possibly go ahead with nearly all planned operations. Do you support that position?
I totally support Jim Mackey. He's an outstanding NHS leader. The last round of strikes we actually had around 11,000 extra appointments delivered during that period compared with the last round of strike action under the Tories. And also it cost 100 million less. I'm not pretending it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that the target that Jim Mackey set will necessarily be met either. I think it is a challenging target. it, but we've got to do everything we can to keep the show on the road. I think the BMA has behaved really responsibly, given they've had a 28.9% pay rise, and I've offered to cancel their various exam fees and portfolio fees, and I've offered to create an extra 1,000 training places for them this year. So they've done very well out of this government. Money is tight, they've done well. I'm asking them to work with us rather than to expect us to be able to solve all problems for everyone everywhere all at once. That's not how life works, and I think most people get that.
Do you remember when you were in opposition, I used to ask you about the terrible issues in state and government, the concerns of everybody, and you used to say, I just get everyone in a room and talk. I can hear those. Well, can't you find a room? Why don't you get in a room?
That's exactly what I've been doing. And in fact, when I finished on the round this morning, my first call today is with the chair of the Doctors Committee to make the last minute appeal for him to do the right thing, for his members to do the right thing. What's frustrating the most of all is I have offered to go further on things that are now expensive for resident doctors to create the jobs that they're crying out for. And what they often come back with is, it's not moving on. You have to keep on saying they've had the highest pay rise in the entire public sector 2 years in a row. And I've got responsibility to nurses, to doctors, and NHS staff who are behind them. So I say with respect to resident doctors, you've done well out of this government so far. It is a journey, it's not an event. You can't just do everything all at once. There's got to be a bit of give and take here, and there's been a bit too much taken, not enough willingness to work with us.
Coming to the last minute or so, but together, seriously, you won't be aware of something called Operation Fortitude. You talk about the front line of the NHS. This is something concerning the front line of our military services, outlined by your colleague, Minister for Veterans and People, Louise Santer-Jones, earlier this week on LBC.
That is facing sleeping on the streets tonight. Sleeping on the streets tonight. Call this number. Make sure you provide accommodation for the number is 0800 942 0774.
You know me well enough to know what happened next. We spoke with Jim, who served in the Royal Engineers of Afghanistan and is currently homeless in Wales.
I was in the line for 3 years. I did turn off Afghanistan.
Thank you for calling Operation Fortitude. The Operation Fortitude team are currently on the call and will be with you as soon as they can.
Secretary said there's no way you know that, but I have to get a government reaction. Jim was on hold for 26 minutes, was promised a call back. He did not get a call back last night, and he slept rough. Operation Fortitude is a joke, isn't it, Secretary of State?
What you just described is completely acceptable.
And I appreciate you have no knowledge, so I'm grateful for your comment.
But in all seriousness, if your team pass me the details, I will make sure that this is picked up by the Ministry of Defence today.
All right, lastly, you say that money is tight, and yet it would appear in the course of 24 hours yesterday, Secretary of State, we looked at possibly bringing those payments to WASPy women, deserved as that might be, £10.5 million, lifting the two-child benefit cap, that's £3.5 billion. That's £14 billion that your colleague Rachel Reeves might have to find. What does a good budget look like to you to raise that sort of cash? More taxes on working people, Mr. Street?
Well, just to, I think, manage a bit of expectation here around the WASPy women issue, what happened there, as I understand it, is when the evidence was given to the former Work and Pension Secretary to make a decision, a part of the evidence bundle was not given to her. And there's been a judicial review application. It's arisen that something that Liz Kendall should have seen was never put in front of her, and therefore the decision now has to be reconsidered entirely by her successor, Pamela Fagin. So I don't want people to get too carried away this morning expecting there to necessarily be a different decision. I think it's, I think this is one of those examples where the system hasn't covered itself in glory. And I really feel actually for both Liz Kendall and Pamela Fagin, it's one of those names for the price of you get the advice, you've got to make decisions, and it is extremely frustrating to put it mildly when you find a made a decision of good faith and then to find that something you should have seen was not.
Lastly, what you could do today is to show that you are
cuts across the health service. LBC has been told the Chancellor is considering another 3.6% hike in outbound duties. So they feel like killing the industry and call for a complete freeze on excise duty. LBC weather showers in south to start, instead dropping in Brighton, where highs of 16 degrees.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC. I don't think Rachel Reeves is going to ask Chancellor pass the Parliament, but even with a budget as difficult as this one is going to be, it is going to be incredibly difficult. I think she'll still be in place, and I think that's because it's got so bad for Keir Starmer personally. If he were doing okay and she wasn't, I think she would probably be going by the end of the year. Tom Swarbrick, Monday to Friday from 4 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app.
The new single drops. The world tour begins. As artists create the music we love, you could be right there in the mix. Calling all young creatives. If you want a career in music, then listen up. Global Academy have a new 6-form music production course. State-of-the-art studios, practical experience, hands-on learning with music professionals. Awesome! Apply now at globalacademy.com.
At TfL, we're making tube journeys faster in the future, with signalling improvements underway in the Circle, District, Hammersmith and City and Metropolitan lines. And there's also the Elizabeth line, already giving you fast journeys across central London. That is how we're making a greener way to travel brighter for everyone. Search TfL to the Mayor of London and TfL. Every journey matters. Elizabeth line is fast with TfL lines. Greener than total estimated petrol and diesel car emissions.
If you bought a home on a holiday park in the UK, what you thought you were getting may not be what you ended up with. From unexpected site fee increases, running costs, a huge depreciation in value, many owners feel they've been missold. If you think this might be you, holidayparkadvicecentre.co.uk could help you receive the compensation you're entitled to. Text ASSIST to 78900 to find out more. That's ASSIST to 78900.
Breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973.
7:34. I'll give you the headlines now. We didn't do them earlier because we had the opportunity to talk to Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, who assures us he's more Joe Marler than he is Alan Carr when it comes to his ambitions to be the Prime Minister. So quickly, what's on the front pages? Well, the rather gloomy economic prospects of the Daily Mail. 1,000 jobs a day now lost under Reeves. The Daily Express, 4 million on benefits, don't have to find a job. And the Times, 1 million more on benefits with no need to seek work. Let's try and lift the mood a little bit. The Sun tells me, I'm a celebrity, get me out of this. With stars down there having limits now on the number of jungle trials they would have to do. What sort of person would take that? I'm a celebrity. From page of the LBC app, Starmer vows to fight on, which is something I've been discussing with Wes Streeting, who reportedly is his number one challenger. And the City AM front page again, referring to, I'm afraid, what seems to be economic stock market suffer record fund outflows. So let's bring into the conversation Christian May, editor-in-chief of City AM, and we will speak more about that in just a moment. But let's celebrate some good news.
You are a dedicated follower of all live music in particular. You're absolutely right. This is the good news. Yeah. My goodness, we need something. I'm delighted to be able to kick off the conversation with a bit of buoyancy because the music industry in this country is booming. Totaling £8 billion worth of contribution to the UK economy in 2024 for their travel down the summer music festival. This is another trade line UK music. We say that on the £7.5 billion contribution to 2023. They are talking about the contribution of huge tours like Oasis, Coldplay, Taylor Swift here in the UK, of course. Think about all the hospitality and travel and tourism and spending that goes on around that. So I think it just the wider contribution of artists in the country. 4,000 jobs created in the sector, up to 220,000. It should be pointed that an awful lot of people in the industry are that much money. About 43% of people are on less than £14,000 a year from music. So a lot of people obviously do this on the side, but it is a good news story. Expectations that next year's figures are going to be higher as well, given some of the events that have been taking place most recently. So a good news story from a tremendously important part of the British economy, which, according to Foreign Secretary, who somewhat oddly wrote forward to the report from the UK industry report, saying this is one of our biggest soft power expressions, so this is an incredibly to say nothing of the jobs and money and the tax revenues.
The Foreign Secretary is doing that. Presumably the Culture Secretary is negotiating with Putin or something like that. But we'll leave that for another conversation. Well, let's stay with good news. Perhaps not quite on the same scale of gigs and concerts, but we go to the high street, and one banking giant saying it's going to snow. Christian.
That's right, Nationwide, huge building society, UK's biggest building society, have reaffirmed and extended their pledge to keep open all of their 700-odd branches until at least 2030. Now that includes 91 branches that used to be Virgin Money, which have now come under Nationwide following that deal. Nationwide actually got in big trouble last year for their adverts featuring Dominic West saying that they're not going to close any branches because some did in fact shut. But on the whole, they are probably out in front of the industry committing to keep their branches open. And they say there are a number of reasons for it, not least the fact that more and more people want to use cash machines inside branches rather than the ones that are outside because they just don't feel safe.
Yep.
So make of that what you will. But they say that this is hugely important. It's about security, it's about safety, it's about giving customers what they want. So all Nationwide branches safe and secure until 2030. Quite what happens after that? Well, we'll see.
Let's turn to your front page at City AM. Stock market suffer record fund outflows. The FTSE 100 in trouble. Break that down for us if you would.
Yes, this is going to sound slightly contradictory because we did choose to report the figures that came to us yesterday showing global country in the London markets, billions of pounds taken out of funds from public markets. People are in this country anticipating perhaps some changes to capital gains, etc., some tax changes in the budget, and people pulling out their money prior to any changes as to how those gains might be taxed. But it is also the case that the valuations of companies listed on the FTSE 100 is now totaling a new high. Second day in a row it closed at a high. And a lot of the companies in the FTSE 100 are deemed, perhaps, well, certainly unfairly, as being quite boring companies. We don't have the rock and roll tech stars of the US. We do have a lot of energy companies and insurance companies and utility companies, and they're pretty solid performers. And yesterday was a very good day for those companies. Energy companies, Shell, BP, Vodafone, just over 8% off the back of some really good results. And so there are quite a few companies being buoyed yesterday. But I have to say, the main reason that the market is hitting a high is because of expectations of an interest rate cut in December. And the main reason there's an expectation of a rate cut in December is because of the terrible jobs figures that we've discussed that are on most of the front pages today. So it's slightly, still a little bit might be contradictions, but it just goes to show how interrelated the economic forces are.
Christian, talk around the same time tomorrow. Thank you for that. Christian May, Editor-in-Chief at City AM 740. We talked about reforms for the NHS with Wes Streeting, currently Health Secretary. Timothy Canterbury, you wanted to call back. Are you in favour of these reforms? He's talking about £1 billion over the lifetime of the Parliament. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. It's not the total headcount for the NHS is 1.7 million currently. It's 1.5 million full-time employees, the biggest employer in the world. And it's mostly it's a reflection of the truth that the NHS is failing. The 20 billion extra pounds in the last 12 months alone that's been put in at taxpayers' expense has produced a 1.5% reduction in productivity. That's the ONS's own figures. And you have the Secretary of Health coming on and making comments that are supposed to impress us, that 1,800 redundancies, which will be voluntary.
18,000, sorry.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
That's all right, that's my job. Go ahead. Yep.
18,000 redundancies, which will be voluntary, by the way, so that the ticket cost for that will be huge. It's
What needs to happen? Is it simply too big? Does it need to somehow, I don't know how you do it, does it somehow need to be split into different departments or bodies?
Whatever government and, Conservative, Labour, coalition have never solved this problem, but there needs to be a coalition of all parties with a 20 or 30-year plan agreed practice, regardless who's in policy or not, which is usually commits to a spending level and a reform programme that will make it fit for purpose in the 21st century.
Jim, thanks for getting us started. One cherished national institution under attack, the NHS, possibly to another, the BBC. Speaking in the House of Commons yesterday, Walter Sixtyseven warned MPs against launching sustained attacks against the BBC.
Those in this House attacking the BBC from left and right for not expressing views they agree with should consider just what is at stake. There is a fundamental difference between raising serious concerns over editorial failings and members of this House launching a sustained attack on the institution itself.
Notwithstanding, there are a litany of issues for the BBC to address. Perhaps the most outstanding one is the position with Donald Trump, who, I remind you, of course, is demanding an apology or retraction of some form of compensation. The President was speaking with Fox News last night. He spoke of an obligation to file a lawsuit against the BBC.
Actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They showed me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up. But it was very dishonest, and they had made all the other people.
We're actually going to play it, but tonight you are saying to our viewers that you will go forward and file a defamation lawsuit against the BBC.
Because you can't get people, you can't allow people to do that.
Let's turn to Sir Ben Bradshaw, who's a Labour MP and Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, and knows the broadcast industry well. Joins me now. Sir Ben, thanks for coming on the line. I'm going to give you two to-do lists and what they need to do first. Lisa Nandi and Samir Shah, take whichever you prefer. Reminding listeners, Samir Shah is, of course, the chair of the BBC. Sir Ben.
I think Samir Shah needs to get a grip on the board, because clearly the board over the last week or so showed itself to be completely incapable of dealing with the crisis effectively and quickly. People could agree, or it was just paralysed, or what. But that's not a sustainable position for our country, particularly as it's about to undergo the 10-yearly licence fee renewal process, and its whole future will be put into question as part of that process. Lisa Nandy, I think, did a good job of defending the BBC in the House yesterday, reminding people why it's important. But she also needs to make sure that the BBC board is functional, and I think she would also, if she hasn't already, needs to ask for an explanation from Shah as to what exactly has been going on, because there have been repeated problems, haven't there, Nick, where the BBC has failed to grip a crisis quickly enough. There's been a cover-up, that's made it even worse, and in the end, it's damaged the BBC's reputation, which isn't in the BBC's interests or any of the rest of us.
Allegations of institutional bias, even corruption. Is that BBC you recognise as former Culture Secretary, Sir Ben?
No, it's not. And I think Lisa made the point in the clip that you just played, didn't she? That, we all would rather the BBC sometimes reflected our own views a bit more strongly. That's the nature of politics. The whole point of the BBC is it's not there to do that. It's not there to follow the agenda of either the right-wing or the left-wing press. It's to reflect the nation as it is in all its diversity and with all its differing views. Some people don't like partisan, don't like that. I think we, think value its role as our national policy, particularly in the world we have today, which is so polarised, full of fake news, bad state actors and others, that the BBC's role is more important than ever, and it's important we're reminded of that.
So then you look at it, it's my belief if there had only been Trump or BBC Arabic or Western conflict, I suggested there are gentlemen to be in position, but it was, I think I used the word, this litany that meant him had to look for his position, had to look for himself.
Yes, I think that's right, but there's also something that's also strange that went on this week, because it seems from all the reporting that both Nick and the head of news, Deborah Turness, wanted to apologise for the Trump clip earlier in the week, and the board wouldn't let them. Now, whether that's because the board wanted a more fulsome apology around institutional bias, I don't know. I think it seems to me that's where the division on the board is, and I don't think it's acceptable for people on that board to be pursuing their own political agendas. If those allegations are true, that's the situation that Shah and the Secretary of State need to sort out.
Referencing Sir Robbie Goodwin, former Director of Communications for Theresa May.
Well, this is the name that's been
do you see it right way? You've been around, don't take this the wrong way, you've been around to see if it's happening. Do you think that's what's afoot?
Well, it's an open secret within the BBC itself that Sir Robbie's influence has been extremely significant, and he's made no secret of the fact that he's thought the BBC was too, in inverted commas,
petition to sue the BBC over the way they edited one of his speeches. LBC weather, showers in the south this morning, staying dry and bright elsewhere, highs of 16.
LBC travel, I'm Joanne Webb on the M25 on the anti-clockwise entry slip road at junction 19. There's been an accident, and as a result, there are delays back onto the A41 from the Hunton Bridge. The M4 is very busy eastbound at junction 89 at Maidenhead, and that's where cars are broken down. Delays back at least half an hour from the A12 southbound to the M25 junction. There's been an accident at queue stretches all the way back to junction 13 at Messing. On the trains, Gatwick Express trains are now running between Victoria and Brighton, but with delays, and also Southern and Thameslink are back up and running between Three Bridges and Brighton, but also with severe delays.
This is LBC.
Benny's parents, thanks for coming. So, Benny's really glossing this town.
You're telling me? The output was Spike. We sold it on eBay.
It's free to sell.
Free to sell? Easy too. Sold Benny's bike, your guitar, my jacket.
You sold my guitar? Shall we talk about Benny?
When it's this easy to sell for free, you can't help but say when it's eBay. Things people love. T's and C's apply. Excludes vehicles.
Call Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
Jeffrey from the Transfer.
Kenneth?
Gordon. George Phillips, Jude Rushing, Dean Quincy, Jeremy, and now Rich. Another year, another party. Past 40 years, we've seen it all. And experts will continue to filter through the news and uncertainty. Most of the tax analysis are lessons helping Britain
Our entire bus fleet is 100% low or zero emission at the tailpipe, including those for our Superloop routes, helping improve air quality for all. And we'll have a fully zero emission fleet by 2034. That is how we're making the greener way to travel brighter for everyone. Search TFN to the Merit London and TFN. Every journey matters. Greener total estimated petrol and diesel car emissions. Waitrose presents one man's selfless journey from sofa to kitchen. For a number of Goldman's play with juicy golden raisins, cherries and apricots, and zesty limoncello. For a number of Goldman's play with juicy golden raisins, cherries and apricots, and zesty limoncello. And a dollop of fresh cream. Limoncello. Waitrose, the home of San Francisco.
Mickey could try to sell his car privately. Or get it sold today with We Buy Any Car. He could spend days on end trying to sell to a bunch of time wasters. Or sell in a flash and head to the fun fair with the kids. Proper gutted. Or proper impressed. To get a quote in 30 seconds, enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
9 minutes before 8. Suggestion of victory for the WASPy women, but there is a sting in the tail because the government says it will look again at its decision to deny compensation to women born in the 1950s hit by state pension age changes after supposedly fresh evidence came to light. Work and Pension Secretary Philip Patton told MPs yesterday evidence from 2007 had emerged that was not shown to his predecessor, Liz Kendall, when she had rejected payouts for the so-called WASPy women earlier in this period. So, are they going to get the money that had been promised for years? That's no secret. We're streeting. This was his reaction earlier this hour.
As I understand it, is when the evidence was given to the former pension secretary to make a decision, a part of the evidence was not given to her. And there's been a judicial review application. It's arisen that something that Liz Kendall should have seen was never put in front of her, and therefore the decision now has to be reconsidered entirely by a successive application. So I don't want people to get too carried away this morning expecting there to necessarily be a different decision. I think it's, I think this is one of those examples where the system has recovered itself. And I really feel actually for both Liz Kendall and it's one of those there, but for the grace of make decisions, and it is extremely frustrating, to put it mildly, when you find you've made a decision in good faith only to find yourself in the ship seen as no good to you.
Our second question is Jane Cowell, campaign manager for women in the state pension hospital, joining me now. Can you help if I may call you Jane? Jane, do we know what this fresh evidence might be? Good morning.
We know what that new evidence is. It's actually some research commissioned by the DWP itself in 2007, which showed completely the opposite of what the minister claimed when she made the decision statement. It showed that women do take notice of letters and would have read them and would have actually acted on the information given in the letter. If you think back to what Ms. Campbell said, she said that women didn't take any notice of letters coming to them, so it wouldn't have made any difference if the government had written to women. But this evidence actually directly contradicts that. Now, that's evidence that was produced within the DWP itself, and we can only wonder why that evidence wasn't presented to the minister at the time that the decision was made.
How many women are we talking?
We're talking, it was 3.8 million women, it's now slightly reduced to 3.6 million women, because obviously we are at an age where, we've got the next possible.
Typically, what sort of level of reward are we talking about per recipient?
Well, the Ombudsman recommended somewhere up to just under £3,000 per recipient, and that's really where the decision that the government decided not to implement. I mean, the PA spent 6 years investigating this matter, and after 6 years of investigation, felt that recompense was due for the maladministration by the DWP. The government seems to have spent 6 months looking at it again, without looking at all the evidence, and decided they wouldn't pay out.
This would cost, we read, somewhere in the region of £10.5 billion when the economy is in a fairly parlous state. Does that give you any sense of unease, Jane?
I think obviously, but we do have to sort of think about what's behind this. I mean, we know that Labour politicians, from the most senior to the most junior level, have stood with WASPI women, agreeing that compensation is due. They've made a promise and a commitment in the past, which I feel they're duty-bound to adhere to. Difficult decisions do have to be made, but I would say that the government made the wrong decision in refusing to make compensation, because it's running roughshod over the system that's set in place to make sure the government acts honestly and with probity.
This story's not going to go away. Jane Cowley, thank you. I sense we might speak again. Your campaign manager of WASPI, Women Against State Pension Inequality, 4 minutes before 8. Susan in Tolworth. Does this apply to you, Susan? Morning. Susan, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, you're on the radio.
Hello, dear. Yes, well, I've listened to all that's been said. I've listened to everything. I don't know if people realise that the Prime Minister's going to give £5.7 billion to Europe for defence. This government is out of control, and it doesn't matter what anybody says. I listened to people on that radio last night, and letting thousands in, we can't afford it. And then the man Streeting, who wants to become the new Prime Minister, he wants to attack people with savings. What does he want to do? Ransack the country?
No, I don't think he wants to attack people with savings. I mean, if this goes through, it costs £10.5 billion. Does that give you any sense of unease, Susan?
Well, I think it's ridiculous. It should have been done years ago. But the point is...
You are a WASPI woman, are you, Susan?
Yes, I am.
Have you calculated how much you think you'll cost?
No, to be honest with you, I just think that they're throwing money around like it's confetti all over the place. And to keep giving more and more deeply, France is 3 times as big as this country, and to keep going on about Europe. Europe is the one that's got us into this mess, and to America.
The German Chancellor is claiming WASPI payments. It's
60-year-old.
Another job?
Eventually, eventually, cleaning in a care home.
Thank you. Have a good day, Ian. Have a good day. Thank you for your input. Jack said possibly women on child benefit who needs the cash more. Andy says we should just pay these women what they pay. We might go back to that. But remember this promise from Government Minister Louise Santhill-Jones about veterans and Operation Fortitude.
Any veteran that is facing sleeping on the streets tonight, sleeping on the streets tonight, call this number. Make sure that we find accommodation for them.
Jim served in Afghanistan.
The Operation Fortitude team are currently on another call and will be with you as soon as they can.
The scandalous treatment of our veterans, the reality of LBC exclusive. News is next.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Wolsey's room at 8 o'clock, the Health Secretary has told LBC claims the Prime Minister is fighting for his job aloft. It's been reported Sir Keir Starmer could face a leadership challenge after the upcoming budget. West Streeting has told Nick the allegations are not true.
I just think this is ridiculous. And Prime Minister is not fighting for his job this morning. Last time I was Prime Minister on Monday evening this morning, was to talk about how to fight the scourge of violence against women and girls. So I think this is done, to be honest.
The Health Secretary says he has given approval for changes at the NHS that could raise £1 billion. It would include cutting thousands of jobs across the health service in England. LBC's Fraser Knight is outside St Thomas's Hospital in central London.
We know that he had announced plans to scrap essentially NHS England as a body to bring that management back into government, back into the Department for Health, and to cut 18,000 administrative jobs. Now, they won't necessarily go from places like St Thomas's Hospital. Here they will probably go more likely from integrated care boards and from within the Department for Health itself.
LBC has been told taxes on alcohol could increase in the budget later this month. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves is expected to put them up by 3.6%. Senior figures say they fear the move would kill the industry. Donald Trump says he feels obliged to sue the BBC for the way it edited one of his speeches. The US president has been speaking for the first time since the row led to two senior bosses stepping down. President Trump says a section of his speech from the night of the Capitol riots had been butchered. And people in parts of the UK could see the Northern Lights later because of a severe geomagnetic storm. The Met Office says the best chance of seeing it will be in the northern half of the UK. In the city, the FTSE 100 will reopen at 98.99 after closing 112 points yesterday. The pound is $1.32 and €1.14. LBC weather, scattered showers in the south this morning, but staying dry and bright for most elsewhere. Feeling mild with highs of 16 degrees. From the overseas room for LBC, I'm Martina.
Ouderwets. Lekker crisp en een chip. Ja, de bier die
A chip and a crisp.
It's got crisp ancestry, but it's a chip.
Like a hot chip crisp combo thingy. Yeah. Pure poetry that was.
McCain vibes. Our chip crisp combo hot snack thingies in a freezer aisle near you.
This is LBC. Leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Morning, just 3 minutes after 8 on Wednesday, the 12th of November, coming up in the south. An LBC exclusive. The promises made just days ago by the Veterans Minister. The reality for the men, and I'm sure the women, will sign the military contract with their lives on the line and come back to effectively nothing. Stay tuned for that exclusive report. In other news,
Bournemouth Council's vote to condemn protests outside 3 hotels housing migrants. I'm LBC's Emma Ford in Bournemouth with the details.
yesterday, in just one day, we learned that the number of people who are too weak to work and therefore can go straight on to benefits has increased by 1.3 million since Labour came to power. We also learned yesterday that the jobless figure has it to a 4-year high of 5%. Meanwhile, if you take into account the 2-child benefit cap, more on that later, and the possible payments to WASPy women, get ready for tax increases that'll have to cover £14 billion worth. £14 billion worth of expenditure talked about yesterday. The view of the Conservatives? Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick.
If Rachel Reeves comes back to Parliament at the end of this month in the budget and hikes taxes again, breaks the manifesto pledge by increasing income tax, for example, I think she's got to go.
And is he or isn't he? The Health Secretary was streeting amid headlines that Sir Keir Starmer is shoring up support, that there is a battle unit being put together at number 10 to combat any leadership bid. This is what Wes says.
I think this is done, to be honest. In fact, I think someone in Downing Street has been watching too much Celebrity Traitors, and this is just about the most appalling attack on a faithful I've seen since Joe Marler was punished in the final.
Nick, free at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Nick, free at breakfast on LBC.
There's no point in this if I don't listen to what you tell me after I had interviews with, in this case, a government minister, or whatever it was. I'll call them on Monday and we'll play you a link. On Monday, they were talking about this Operation Fortitude, the ideas of family centres, and this extraordinary claim by the minister that they could find someone for a homeless veteran. Now, that was, if you recall, having listened to the minister about an hour or so later, so many of you phoned in saying that they would let down. And then, of course, what you don't see is after the show, I take away all the texts and emails and everything else, and you can ask me, as I said, so let's talk about the second operation of reducing the veterans and homelessness. Minister of Home said people pleaded with us to run the number, actually asking me personally, which I was happy to do. As I say, veterans soon get so despite promises to end veterans' homelessness, has Operation Fortitude failed? First up, OBC's correspondent Andy Ballantyne has exclusive details. Andy.
See, this was Minister for Veterans and People, Louise Jones, talking to you.
This is something I really want to get across today, but I don't know if we can help you with this. It's the Fortitude, which is our helpline anyway. That is facing sleeping on the streets tonight. Sleeping on the streets tonight. We'll make sure that we find accommodation for them. The number is there. This is a challenge for everybody to remember this number. 800 952 0774. If you're a veteran facing sleeping on the streets tonight, call that number and we will find accommodation for you.
Well, Emma Keelan from Morgan Port in Cornwall, who served 2 tours in Bosnia and Kosovo. Well, earlier this year, her landlord issued her with the dreaded Section 21 notice. She told me about her previous experience with Fortitude, given 2 options. One was moving from Cornwall to North Yorkshire, which Emma didn't want to do. The other was that they would send her a tent. She spent just over 10 days living in that tent.
Fortitude, who then got me a tent because that was the only accommodation available.
Well, we like the challenge, showing true LBC style. Challenge accepted. With the help of another veteran, Jim, who served in the Royal Engineers in Afghanistan, homeless since the pandemic. Well, he rang the Op Fortitude helpline anonymously.
I was in the Royal Engineers. I did turn off this.
Thank you for calling Operation Fortitude. The Operation Fortitude team are currently on the call and will be with you as soon as they can. Thank you for calling Operation Fortitude. Please leave your name and contact number and we will call you back as soon as we can.
Nick, for 26 minutes we had to listen to that hold music before being cut off, and so far, no. Government spokesperson Wes Streeting was on the morning rounds, and this is what he told LBC.
What you've just described is completely unacceptable.
And I appreciate you have no knowledge, so I'm grateful for your comment.
But in all seriousness, if your team pass me all the details, they will make sure this is picked up by the
Ministry of Defence for a response, but so far they've not got back to us. Nick, we'll track progress and how both Emma and Jim get on over the coming weeks and months.
Andy Ballantyne reporting. Yes, as Andy said, the Ministry of Defence has been approached for comment. They said they haven't been given enough time. Whereas, of course, when you scramble the military, the men brave enough, brave and women brave enough to serve, we always have to give them extra notice, don't we, before they can be deployed. Quite extraordinary, the Ministry of Defence. So this is the reality, my friends. Absolute hollow promises. At one point, 2 tours, Bosnia and Kosovo, I contacted Operation Fortitude, and they sent me a tent. That's how we treat our veterans. To Matthew Hellier. Mr. Hellier is an SAS veteran with over 25 years military service, the CEO of the Pilgrim Bandits charity, And if I can, sir, can I ask you, what is the Pilgrim Bandits all about? What do you do? Good morning to you.
Morning, Nick. How are you?
I'm grand. I'm not ex-men. I'm not
Thank the Lord for that, mate. It's because the Pilgrim Bandits, what we set up a charity about 12 years ago now to look after the injured veterans, the most injured servicemen and women in this country, and it's now progressed to building services and also disadvantaged members of the community, which, as we know at the moment, is huge amounts. Our charity is just working overdrive at the moment. It is a very small charity. We have no outside funding, we have public funding. And the public donate to this wonderful charity Pilgrim Bandits because it sees what it does. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. It helps veterans, blue light and members of our community, full stop. What we're seeing at the moment with this government and of course the previous government is an absolute lack of respect for our veterans. They are lying. They are treating us with utter disrespect, and it is just breaking the veterans' resolve. You know, the government have put in place 5 op names, courage, fortitude, all of this sort of stuff. I was part of this before it was a government scheme. It was myself and a number of consultants from the NHS that looked at this, and I brought the first case, the Op Resolve. An op courage, I brought those to the forefront. And we had injured veterans that couldn't get on the NHS waiting list. They had complex injuries. You're talking about young guys and young girls with the most complex and severe injuries. Now, your GPs are not used to seeing individuals like this, and normal A&Es, majors and minors. So we needed to come up with a scheme that looked after these complex injuries. And the scheme was pretty simple. We have £4 billion worth of public money and government money in the charity sector, in the military charity sector. But I can tell you now, we haven't got £4 billion worth of problems, Nick. And this is what is shameful. It was never meant to go under the NHS. Why would we create a fantastic new scheme? Okay, utilising charity money to get complex injuries looked at by specialists, and I mean private care specialists, which gives veterans priority as they deserve. They're the ones that have given you all the freedom to speak and come on these programs and do stuff. So let's never, ever forget that. They're the guys that have left their DNA in foreign battlefields.
You say let's never forget. Matthew, it was only yesterday that I paused for 2 minutes, and hopefully most of the nation paused for 2 minutes, and our politicians paused for 2 minutes. Blokes like you who served, blokes like and women that you're helping with Pilgrim's Bandits, how do they view those polls, those politicians?
I'm going to tell you with absolute distrust. We do not trust any politicians. You have seen what's going on. You know, my comrades in my regiment, 2 of them have just been lifted by the police, West Mercia Police. It's an ongoing case, but they've been arrested for murder. Okay, these are stuff that they've been looking at in foreign fields. They have applied themselves on operations that has been sanctioned, legalised and signed off by chain of command, and at the top of that chain of command sits the foreign secretary. And yet, my guys are still being lifted and arrested. There is no protection, whether it be legal, medical, housing,
soldiers are left homeless. Well, don't forget that the one was sent a tent. Caroline agrees it's awful veterans are treated this way. It's awful anyone is. Homelessness should not exist. We're one of the richest countries in the world. It's inexcusable. Calls coming in on how we let our men and women down. Ben, you'll be the first caller on that. Plus, there's plotting afoot in Westminster.
I think this is daft, to be honest. In fact, I think someone in Downing Street has been watching too much Celebrity Traitors, and this is just about the most appalling attack on a faithful I've seen since Joe Marler was banished from the final.
But I did ask, is he Joe Marler or is he Alan Carr? Wes says after this. 8:15 LBC News headlines. Lottie Morley.
The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has told Nick claims the Prime Minister is fighting for his job are daft. The Health Secretary says he has given approval for changes at the NHS that could raise £1 billion. And LBC has been told taxes on alcohol could go up by 3.6% in the budget later this month. LBC weather, scattered showers in the south this morning, but staying dry and bright elsewhere. Highs of 16 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. Severe delays on the M25 clockwise onto the QE2 bridge, and that's because of an accident. There are delays from before junction 30 at the A13, and then on the A13, as a result, there are delays from Grays. Also on the M25, but over on the western stretch, there are delays at junction 18 at Chorleywood after a car broke down earlier, though that car has now been recovered. Very busy on the M4 eastbound to junction 89 at Maidenhead. A car has broken down and one lane is closed for recovery. Gatwick Express and also Southern and Thameslink services are now running to and from Brighton, but with delays. But there are problems now on southeastern trains. They're not running between Blackheath and New Cross because of an ongoing investigation.
The new LBC app. News your way. This is LBC.
Why aren't you eating?
Waiting for the Yorkshires.
Puddings? You don't have those at Christmas.
Yes,
well, we don't.
That's what makes it Christmas.
Pass the bread sauce.
Bread sauce. Tesco. Every little helps.
Call Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973. LBC.
Managing a business or a football club, your team are your biggest strength. When it comes to cybersecurity, they could also be your biggest weakness. 88% of cybersecurity breaches are caused by normal human error. So how do you help your team form the ultimate impenetrable line of defense? Just ask BT. Do you ever feel like getting back under your duvet in the middle of the day? Ferroglobin is a great-tasting liquid formula with iron, which contributes to the reduction of tiredness and fatigue and normal formation of hair. Ferroglobin from Vitabiotics at Boots, Pharmacies and Vitabiotics.com.
How's the business going? But struggling to get the staff we need. Recruiting can be such a distraction. We gave Job Centre Plus a try, and they've really helped us out. Really? Yeah, it was dead easy. Advisor Julie, who helped advertise our jobs, shortlisted candidates for us and let us interview at the Job Centre. We've hired some great people, and Job Centre Plus really took the hassle out of it. And there was no fee. Brilliant. That's straight on my to-do list.
Find out more at business.gov.uk/recruit. Eligibility criteria apply.
You asked, BT answered.
Keeping your team cyber is really important in the modern marketplace. Regular training on things like data handling, spotting threats, and securing their devices helps you keep them and your business safe.
Cybersecurity is everyone's business. Search BT Business Cybersecurity to find out more.
Nick Ferrari Breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
19 minutes after 8. Ben in Eltham, thanks for hanging on the line. Where do you start with a government minister who comes on, promises effectively the earth a bed for the night, and we find out in reality you're put on hold for nearly half an hour, you don't get the call back, and in some instances you're sent a tent? Ben, good morning.
Morning, Nick. First time caller.
Good to have you on, sir.
Nick, I was listening to your show yesterday where she said, and she gave out the number, and I thought, what an amazing thing to do for our veterans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, promise them a bed overnight. To then be told and listen to your show today and hear that a veteran was sent out a tent, and as some of your listeners and some of your callers have already highlighted, you can come over on a dinghy and be put into a hotel, 3 meals a day, tickets to theme parks, tickets to bowling alleys, tickets to events, subsidised by the government. What is going on, Nick? The country is a mess. The country is an absolute mess. We're not looking after our own and caring for our own. we are too soft. Our borders are too soft. And I understand that these people have been through hell in their home countries, war, famine, stuff that goes on that we couldn't imagine. But surely we should start looking after our own. Sending out a tent is not the way to do it.
Well,